Today we're going to learn about sorbet. Sorbet is also known as water ice or Italian ice and can be made from virtually any fruit using very simple ingredients and accented with the fruit itself for a presentation. Today we're going to learn how to make pineapple and mixed berry sorbet. So to begin, you will need a food processor or a blender. We're going to start with 1 pound of frozen fruit. Here we are using pineapple. I'm going to sweeten this with honey, and I'm going to use a pinch of salt to accentuate the flavors. I'm also going to use a half of a lime just to add a little balance of acidity. I like to use the lime juicer, so this way I get all of the juice out of the lime. So now I'm going to start to process this, and because it is a frozen item, you're going to see that it's going to first chunk up and break up into small pieces. And we're going to puree this on high, again using this as a food processor, or you can use a blender. Occasionally I'm going to scrape down the sides and bring everything back together. And if I see that it's too thick or not mixing in, I'm going to add in a half a cup of water. So now as the water adds in and the friction continues to start to break down and warm up slightly the frozen fruit, you're going to start to see that it's going to incorporate air, and you'll see the difference on the bottom, how it's nice and light in color versus the top, which still has chunks of the fruit. We're going to continue to puree this until it becomes nice and smooth and there are no more chunks of fruit left. So again, stopping occasionally to scrape down the sides will help to incorporate those pieces that need to become more pureed. So we'll continue to process this. We want to work fairly quickly because we don't want our frozen fruit to melt and become to become fruit juice. We want it to stay nice and frozen and keep a great consistency. So this process should take all of but just maybe about 5 minutes in order to get a nice smooth sorbet. Now during the process I did taste it and found that it did still need a little bit of sweetness, so I added a little bit more honey. And you're going to have to adjust your recipes based on the batch of fruit that you are using. Sometimes it might be sweeter than other times. Now I'm going to take a flat tray and I'm going to scrape out the sorbet. It almost looks like ice cream consistency. I'm going to scrape this out into the pan, get everything out of the food processor. And again, I can do this with any fruit. So I'm going to spread this nice and smooth into the bottom of the pan. I'm going to take some saran wrap and I want to place it right on the surface of the sorbet. And then I'll put a secondary layer on top so that we don't get any frozen crystals. We want to set this aside for about 2 hours. So now I'm going to start with a mixed berry sorbet. And here I'm using whatever I had in the freezer. So I had blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries. I also had some acai juice. I'm going to add my water, my lime juice, and my pinch of salt. Same process again. I'm going to now process this nice and smooth. And you'll see because the cell walls of the berries break down a little bit faster, you'll see that this puree is a little bit easier and quicker than the pineapple had done. And for this scenario, I also had used sugar as opposed to honey because I wanted to have the sweetness but not with that honey flavor for this recipe. So again, it was about 1 pound of fruit. I used a half a cup of water, a pinch of salt, a half a lime, and here I used 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Now the one issue that we have when we're using berries to make a sorbet is that berries have lots of seeds in them. So I'm going to take the time to strain all of those berries out of my sorbet because I know in my house my son will not eat this if there's a ton of seeds. So it's also nicer to have that nice pureed sorbet. So I'm going to take my time and I'm going to, take my time but work quickly because it is a frozen product. And I'm going to push this through a strainer to get all of the juice to come out the other side but to hold back all of the seeds. Then the same thing, I'm going to put it into a pan And I'm going to put the saran wrap on the surface and then a second layer on top to keep crystals from forming. Now when it's time to serve my sorbet, I'm going to use a nice hot cup of water with an ice cream scoop so that I can portion it out. The hot water will heat up the scoop so that I can scoop it nice and easily. And then I'm just going to scrape and fill up the scoop. And you can serve as much or as little as you'd like. Typically, sorbet is served in between meals as a palate cleaner or cleanser. And what it does is it allows the flavors from your first course to your second course to be taken away from your palate and refreshed, right? So that's what the sorbet is doing, is refreshing the palate. So here I'm going to show that I'm going to serve it with a slice of orange. I would have used berries or pineapple but didn't have any more, so I just put that there for decoration. And that is our sorbet. So enjoy this nice sweet treat on this nice hot week. Grab some frozen fruits and make some delicious combinations. And as always, if you'd like to know more about the recipes we make, please follow us on Instagram and our YouTube channel. Hope you enjoyed this.